So amphibians are considered organisms to have double life, so that's what they're also known as. They're the first tetrapods. That means they were the first amphibians to walk with 4 legs and live on land. And they were similar to fish because they still use gills. And this is a picture of the first tetrapod, which is basically extinct. Their classification is Kingdom Animalia, Phylum Chordata, and class Amphibia. And we're going to focus on the first 3 orders of that class. Generally, they live on both land and water. So I'm going to put that here. A little bit more description is what stage of development they live in each. And you don't have to know that on the test, but here's an example. They live in the water in their larva stage. They go back to the water to reproduce, but they spend the majority of their time on land. I will scratch that out to remind you don't have to know it on the test. General characteristics of tadpoles, we're going to kind of just ignore because we're going to do general characteristics of amphibians in general. So their structures, they use lungs to breathe. They also use, they have moist, soft skin. They use their lungs and their skin to breathe, along with gills at certain stages of development, and their eggs are soft. See if there's anything else here. Oh, they have what? 3-chambered heart. Good job. Yes, I'm in class. Shout out to period C. So my 3 classes are Anura. Whoops, you have to know that they're frogs and toads. And what do we call them? Tailless. Don't worry about the general characteristics because, again, we're doing general characteristics of all amphibians, not specific orders. They, the second order is what? Urodela. What do we know about them? Salamanders and newts, and they're considered the tailed ones. And again, we're not going to worry about any of this, okay? And the last one, Sicilians, legless. So here's the question I asked my other class. Why are Sicilians not, or why are Sicilians amphibians if they're not tetrapods? I'll pause. So correct, they have a 3-chambered heart, moist skin, or all the characteristics of amphibians. That generally puts them into that category. So here's the life cycle of amphibians. If I gave you this picture, what do we call this? Larva, okay, or eggs, yeah. And this? Tadpole, this? Kind of the same thing. And then you've got your mature adult, and here's what you got. Now, eggs, embryo, tadpole, and then you see front legs breaking through, and those are the stages of development or the life cycle of a frog. And you could click on that link to see a video, I think, of them. All right, so to breathe, or the respiratory system, major organs are what? Lungs, okay, major organs. We're not going to get into each. We're just going to learn one major organ for respiratory system for amphibians, and when we move on to reptiles and birds, we're going to learn more of the respiratory system. But I want you to know that they use their skin along with their lungs to breathe as adults, and when they're in their early stages, they use their gills. So the skin exchanges gases, and they do this when they are in the water. And there's a picture here of the extents of their skin. You don't have to know or label any of that part. But amphibians will breathe through their mouth and their nose, and then what happens? What determines where that breath is going to go? What's that little flap? The glottis, okay? And then the breath of air or oxygen will go straight down the windpipe to the what? Lungs. Good. So like fish, obviously amphibians have a brain, and every other order we're going to cover has a brain, and same parts, medulla, cerebrum. There's obviously more. Those are the general. But I want you to know major structures of the nervous system is not just the brain. You also have your spinal cord and your nerves. And when we get to mammals, we're going to discuss this system more in detail. This is one of the most complex systems that you have to be prepared for AP Bio. So moving on to this one. This is the main system of this unit, the one where I'm breaking down well, not every, but the majority of the major parts and functions. So a frog begins digestion where? No. In the mouth. I'm sorry, begins its system, okay? So it begins to feed in the mouth. What's in the mouth that allows it to process food? Saliva and what else? Teeth. Good. So it's the teeth and the tongue, and you're right, saliva produced from the tongue helps them start that process, okay? It's not necessarily digestion. And then, like I mentioned before, you have that glottis, okay, which is really part of the respiratory system, so I put as a star here. But it's important to know that the glottis determines whether food is going to go to the trachea or it's going to go to the esophagus, which is the next one. That's my tube that connects your mouth to what? Correct. Your stomach, which is the start of digestion. So here it is color-coded for you. You got mouth, then you've got esophagus, then you've got stomach. And you see the glottis right here? So I told you when we dissect the frog, you're going to be able to cut open the cheeks and kind of pull apart a little bit the jaw. And then you could probe and you'll be able to see that there's two perfect pathways just like determined by that little flap that opens and closes. So all the digestive system is connected by ducts, and I'm kind of showing them to you here, but you don't have to know those yet. We're going to focus on those a little bit later. But these, actually, just title them. We've got liver, gallbladder, and pancreas. I kind of call those the side major organs of the digestive system. Without them, you're going to definitely need medication and things of that nature. And obviously, without a liver, you're in big trouble. But you've heard of gallbladder removal, right? Pancreas, you know, obviously you don't want to remove that, but they remove parts of it when it's malfunctioning. But after stomach, really the pathway, once food gets digested in the stomach, where does it go? Small intestine. That's where most of the digestion occurs. And then we go into the large intestine, which is the final form of digestion. And when we cover this system again, when we do reptiles, birds, and mammals, we're going to learn more about these organs and their function. Where does it end? Anus. Now, frogs have this structure called, and you might have these in your projects as well, I'm just saying it, the cloaca, and it helps with excretion or the final stages of digestion, and it's part of the reproductive system as well. So there's the small intestine, there's the large intestine, and here is the remainder organs.